Hi guys and welcome to Crazy Pepper Revenge. This channel is all about crazy true stories, stuff that happens in real life when things get a little bit messy.
My wife Vivian dropped a bombshell on me during a regular weeknight dinner. We weren't at some fancy place where the atmosphere might have cushioned the impact. Nope, just our kitchen table on a random Wednesday, eating takeout from the Chinese place down the street. She looked at me between bites of lo mein and said we should put our marriage on hold. Just like that. Like she was suggesting we pause a TV series we'd been binge watching. I literally stopped mid-chew and put my fork down. Put our marriage on hold? I repeated, making sure I'd heard correctly. She nodded casually, not even making eye contact. Just for the 3 weeks while I'm traveling to Tokyo for work. I think some distance would help us both evaluate where we stand. Distance. Evaluate. These therapeutic buzzwords people throw around when they want freedom without facing consequences. When they want to keep their safety net while testing other waters. I kept my voice steady and asked what exactly we needed to evaluate. She finally looked up and I caught this flash of annoyance that I dared to ask follow-up questions instead of just accepting her proposal. Our relationship, this whole marriage thing, whether we're genuinely content anymore. So are you content? I pressed. Her response was immediate. I honestly don't know, and that's exactly why I need this. She pushed food around her plate. 3 weeks of separation will give us perspective. Perspective, another one of those words that sounds deep but actually means nothing concrete. I leaned back and really looked at her. This woman I'd shared 6 years of marriage with. When exactly had she transformed into someone I barely recognized? So you want to suspend our marriage while you're halfway across the planet for 3 weeks? I said, letting each word sink in. Exactly, she said, looking relieved that I seemed to be grasping her point. No obligations, no pressure, just space to decompress and reflect. What she didn't verbalize, but what hung heavy in the air between us. No accountability either. No boundaries, no commitment. Basically a hall pass with a round-trip ticket attached. The logical move would have been to argue, demand explanations, fire off the million questions burning in my brain. But I'd learned something about manipulation tactics over the years. The person deploying them always anticipates resistance. They've rehearsed responses to your anger, your pain, your desperation. So I did something she hadn't prepared for. All right, I said simply. She blinked in confusion. All right, sure. If that's what you need, then all right. I picked my fork back up and continued eating like we'd just decided what movie to stream later. The bewilderment on her face almost made the gut punch I was feeling worth it. She'd expected waterworks, arguments, maybe even pleading. Instead, I was eating fried rice with all the emotional investment of someone discussing weather patterns. You're actually okay with this? Her voice had an edge now. You're an adult who knows what she wants, I said, meeting her gaze. 3 weeks, right? Your flight's on Saturday? Saturday morning, she confirmed, studying me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. You're acting strange about this. How should I be acting? I asked. You want space, I'm providing space. Seems pretty straightforward to me. The following 3 days were fascinating in the most painful way possible. She kept circling back to the topic like my acceptance troubled her more than resistance would have. She'd drop comments about the trip, watch for my reaction, mention how long 3 weeks actually was, waiting for me to crack. I didn't. Friday evening, she packed her luggage in our bedroom while I watched television in the living room. She emerged twice, hovering in the doorway like she wanted to say something important. Both times, I just acknowledged her with a nod and returned my attention to the screen. Saturday morning arrived. Her rideshare to the airport was scheduled for 6. I woke at 5:30, brewed coffee, went through the motions like any ordinary morning. She stood by the front door with her suitcases, and for the first time since Wednesday, she looked genuinely uncertain. So I guess this is it, she said. Have a safe flight, I replied, handing her the travel mug of coffee I'd prepared. Send me a message when you land. She accepted the mug, her hand trembling slightly. Are you certain you're okay with this? I smiled, not a warm smile, not a cold smile, just a smile that communicated absolutely nothing she wanted. A pause, I said. Enjoy your trip. She hesitated, then walked out. I watched through the window as she loaded her bags, climbed into the car, drove away. The instant her rideshare turned the corner, I closed the door, leaned against it, and released a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. 3 weeks, she thought. I'd spend them waiting by the phone, pining for her return, proving how desperately I needed her. She had zero idea what 3 weeks of freedom could do to a man who'd finally stopped lying to himself. I pulled out my phone and opened my Notes app, started a fresh list. Things to accomplish while marriage is on pause. First item, figure out if I want to resume this when she returns. Spoiler alert, I already knew the answer. The house felt different with her gone. Not empty, just honest. I spent Saturday doing what I hadn't done in years. Whatever I wanted. Ordered pizza at 10 in the morning, because why not? Played music she despised. Left dishes in the sink without hearing a lecture about responsibility. By Sunday, the clarity she'd promised started hitting, just not the way she'd intended. I called my buddy Dominic. We'd been close before the marriage, then drifted when she made it clear she didn't approve of my friends. They're immature, she'd said. Translation, they saw through her act. No way, Dominic said when I told him about the pause. She actually said that? Word for word, I confirmed. And you agreed, just like that? Seemed easier than the alternative. I was sitting on the back porch, beer in hand. First one I'd had in the house in months. She'd declared the house a wellness zone last year. Brother, you know what this is, right? Dominic's voice got serious. This is her testing the waters while keeping you as backup. I'd thought the same thing. Hearing it out loud made it concrete. Probably, I admitted. So what are you going to do? Good question. What was I going to do? Monday morning, I took a personal day from work, made an appointment with Lawrence Brennan, a divorce attorney Dominic recommended. Not because I'd decide anything definite, just to understand my options. Brennan's office was downtown, one of those places with leather chairs and law books lining every wall. He listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. Let me ask you something, he said when I finished. Do you think she's coming back ready to fix this marriage? Honestly, I think she's coming back expecting to find me broken and grateful she returned at all. He nodded slowly. I've seen this pattern before. The spouse who asks for space usually isn't looking for answers. They're looking for permission. Permission for what? To do whatever they want without technically being the bad guy. They can say we were on a break and avoid responsibility. That tracked. She'd been careful with her words. Not separation, not divorce, just a pause. Plausible deniability wrapped in therapy speak. What would you do, I asked, if you were me? Brennan leaned back. I'd use these 3 weeks to get my ducks in a row. Financial records, property assessment, understand your rights. If she comes back and you decide to work it out, great. You've lost nothing but some consultation fees. But if she comes back expecting you to just accept whatever happened in Tokyo, he shrugged. You'll be prepared instead of blindsided. I left his office with a folder full of documents to gather and a strange sense of relief. I wasn't planning for divorce. I was planning for self-respect. That afternoon, I did something else I hadn't done in years. Hit the gym, not the one she'd picked out with the organic smoothie bar and yoga studios. The old school place with free weights and guys who actually broke a sweat. Felt good. Felt like reclaiming something I'd lost. Tuesday, my phone buzzed. Text from Tokyo, settled into the hotel. Time difference is brutal. Miss you. I stared at it for a long moment. Miss you, 2 words that would have made my chest tight 6 months ago. Now they just felt like checking a box. I texted back, glad you made it safe. Get some rest. Short, polite. 0 emotion. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, that's it. I could feel her frustration through the screen. She wanted more. Wanted me to pour out feelings. Ask questions. Give her the attention she'd put on pause. What else should I say? I replied. The dots appeared and disappeared twice more. No response came. Wednesday, I started going through our finances properly. Not snooping, just looking at what was mine, what was ours, what would be fair. Turned out we kept things pretty separate. My income, my accounts, her income, her accounts, joint account for bills. Made things simpler, made things clearer. Thursday, she called. Video call at 8 p.m. my time, which meant Friday afternoon for her. I answered. She was in what looked like a hotel room. Professional, but tired. Hey, she said. Haven't heard much from you. Been busy. How's Tokyo? Interesting. Meetings are intense. She paused. I've been thinking about us. And I guess I expected you to be more upset about this pause thing. I almost laughed. You wanted me upset? No, you're acting like it doesn't matter. You asked for space, I gave you space. Did you want me to handle it differently? She looked frustrated. You're being weird, distant. I'm being respectful of your boundaries, I said calmly. That's what you wanted, isn't it? She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. I'm starting to wonder if you even care about this marriage. And there it was, the trap. If I said I cared, I'd be the desperate husband she could manipulate. If I said I didn't, I'd be the villain who gave up without trying. I care about being in a marriage where both people want to be there, I said. Do you want to be here? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Then figure it out. That's what these 3 weeks are for, right? I kept my tone neutral. You've got 2.5 weeks left. Use them. We ended the call shortly after. She looked more confused than when we'd started. Friday night, Dominic came over, brought beer and burgers. You look different, he said, studying me over his food. Different how? Like you've been sleeping better. I had been. No walking on eggshells, no wondering what mood she'd be in. No analyzing every word for hidden meanings. This pause thing, Dominic said, you think it's going to become permanent? I took a long pull from my beer. I think she wanted permission to do whatever she wanted while keeping me as an option. But here's what she didn't count on. What's that? That I'd realize I'm an option too, and I might decide to exercise my options. Dominic raised his beer. About damn time, brother. We clinked bottles. The first week without her was ending, and I discovered something she probably hadn't wanted me to find. Life without the constant manipulation was genuinely good. 2 more weeks until she came back, expecting to find me grateful and broken. She was going to be very disappointed. Week 2 started with a shift in her messages. They came more frequently now, more probing. Went to this amazing dinner last night. Rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. Wish you could see it. Translation: I'm having experiences without you. Feel jealous yet? I sent back a thumbs up emoji. That's it, just a thumbs up. 10 minutes later, that's your response? Sounds nice, I typed. Enjoy yourself. Radio silence for 6 hours. Then, what have you been up to? I could have lied. Could have made her think I was miserable. Instead, I told the truth. Hit the gym this morning, grabbed lunch with Dominic. Pretty standard week. The response came fast. Dominic? Since when are you hanging out with Dominic again? Since you're not here to tell me he's a bad influence, I thought. We grabbed burgers, caught up on stuff. What stuff? I stared at my phone. This was the woman who wanted space to figure things out, now interrogating me about having lunch with a friend. Just life stuff. How are your meetings going? Subject change. She didn't like that. Fine. But seriously, you and Dominic haven't talked in like 2 years. 3 years, I corrected. And whose fault was that? I regretted sending it the moment I hit enter. Not because it wasn't true, because it gave away that I was thinking clearly about the past. She didn't respond for the rest of the day. Tuesday, I signed up for a woodworking class at the community center, something I'd mentioned wanting to do years ago, back when we first got married. She'd shot it down. We can't afford hobbies right now, she'd said while booking her 3rd spa day that month. Turned out we could afford hobbies just fine. I could afford hobbies just fine. The class was Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Basic stuff, but I liked it. Liked working with my hands. Liked being around people who didn't care about my marriage status or whether I was meeting someone's expectations. Wednesday, she tried calling. I was in the middle of the woodworking class, phone on silent. Didn't see it until I got home at 9:30. 3 missed calls, 2 voicemails. The first voicemail, hey, just calling to check in, call me back when you get this. The second voicemail, it's been 3 hours, where are you? Call me. The entitlement in her tone was fascinating. She'd asked for a pause on our marriage, but expected me to be available on demand. I texted instead of calling. Sorry, was at class. Everything okay? What class? Woodworking? Started this week. Woodworking? Since when? Since I had free time. 3 dots appeared and disappeared about 5 times. Finally, we need to talk tomorrow. Actual talk, not texting. Sure, I sent back. What time works for you? But I didn't feel that knot in my stomach anymore. I didn't feel that automatic anxiety about what she wanted to discuss. If anything, I was curious about what excuse she'd come up with. Thursday, she called right at 6 p.m. my time. I was grabbing dinner before my woodworking class. "You sound busy," she said after I answered. "Eating dinner. What's up?" "I've been thinking about us a lot." Her voice had that careful tone, the one she used when she was trying to seem vulnerable. "This time apart has been hard. Has it?" I took a bite of my sandwich, let the question hang. Of course it has. Haven't you been struggling? Struggling? Interesting word choice. "I've been managing," I said. Managing. She repeated it like it was a foreign concept. "That's it? You're just managing? What did you expect?" "I don't know. Maybe some indication that you miss me, that this pause is affecting you." I set down my sandwich. "You asked for space to figure out if you're happy in this marriage. Did you want me to spend 3 weeks begging you to come back to prove I need you?" Silence. "Because that's not happening," I continued. "You wanted clarity. I'm getting clarity too." "What does that mean?" Her voice rose slightly. "It means I'm realizing some things while you're gone." "Like what?" "Like how much easier it is to breathe when I'm not constantly worried about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing or being the wrong thing." More silence, then, "That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time I did something for myself without checking with you first? When's the last time I saw my friends without getting a lecture about priorities?" "I never stopped you from seeing your friends." I almost laughed. "You didn't have to stop me. You just made it so miserable every time I did that it became easier not to." "I can't believe you're saying this." Her voice cracked slightly. "I thought this time apart would help us, and you're using it to build a case against me." "I'm not building anything. I'm just seeing things clearly for the first time in years." "So what? You're done? You've given up on us?" "I haven't given up on anything," I said calmly, "but I'm not going to pretend the last few years have been healthy just because it's uncomfortable to admit." She was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing. A year ago, those tears would have broken me, would have had me apologizing, backtracking, doing whatever it took to make her feel better. Now I just felt tired. "Look," I said, "you've got another week and a half in Tokyo. Finish your trip. Figure out what you want. I'll be here." "Will you?" The question came out sharp. "Because it sounds like you're already gone. I'm exactly where you left me," I said. "But I'm not waiting around like a lost puppy. That's not who I am." We ended the call shortly after. I sat in my car for a few minutes, processing. Then I drove to my woodworking class. Friday afternoon, Dominic called. "Dude, you're not going to believe this," he said. "What?" "Jenna ran into your wife's friend, Bethany. Apparently, Bethany got a call from Tokyo last night. Your wife was crying about how you've changed, how you're being cold, how she thinks you're going to leave her. She said that?" Word for word, according to Jenna. Bethany asked what she expected taking a break from her marriage. Your wife apparently said she just needed to clear her head, not lose her husband. I couldn't help it. I laughed, genuinely laughed. "What's funny?" Dominic asked. She wanted a pause. She's getting a pause. But she still wants me on standby, ready to jump when she snaps her fingers. "So what are you going to do? Finish my woodworking project? Hit the gym, maybe grab dinner with some people who actually value my time?" And when she gets back? I looked around my living room, at the space I'd reclaimed, at the life I'd started rebuilding. When she gets back, she's going to find out that pressing pause gave me time to realize I don't need to press play again. Dominic was quiet for a moment. "You sound different, man. Stronger." "I feel different," I admitted. Turns out 3 weeks of not being manipulated does wonders for your mental health. That weekend, her messages became almost frantic. Photos of Tokyo, long texts about her day, questions about mine. Each one more desperate for engagement than the last. I responded to all of them, polite, brief, emotionally neutral. And with each short response, I could feel her panic growing 8,000 miles away. 9 days left until she came home. 9 days for her to realize that the pause she'd asked for had become the space I needed to find myself again. And there was no going back from that. I was finishing my bench press set when my phone buzzed on the gym floor Saturday morning, 9 days into her 3-week trip. Text from her. "Flying back Monday. Need to talk in person." No question mark. No asking if that was okay. Just an announcement. I wiped the sweat off my face, stared at the message. She was coming back a full week early. "Everything good?" My gym buddy Fletcher asked, re-racking his weights. Wife's cutting her trip short. The one on the marriage pause? Fletcher was new to my life. Met him at this gym. Former military. No tolerance for nonsense. That's interesting timing, isn't it? You ready for that conversation? I thought about the divorce papers sitting in my desk drawer. Not filed, just prepared? Just in case. Yeah, I said, I'm ready. Monday came faster than expected. I took the day off work, cleaned the house, not because she expected it, but because I wanted to. Finished the cutting board I'd been making in woodworking class. Went for a run. Her flight was supposed to land at 2 p. She'd texted she'd take a ride share straight home. I was ready by 1, sitting in the living room, cutting board on the coffee table, mentally prepared for whatever was coming. She walked through the door at 3:15, 2 massive suitcases, looking exhausted and somehow different. Hair was shorter, clothes were new. Hey, she said, setting down her bags. Welcome back. How was the flight? She looked around the house like she was seeing it for the first time, taking in the changes. The gym equipment in the corner I'd bought last week, the woodworking magazines on the side table, the lack of her usual clutter. The house looks different, she said. I've been keeping busy. She picked up the cutting board, ran her fingers over the smooth walnut wood. You made this? Finished it yesterday. Woodworking class. Right, the class. She set it down carefully. We need to talk. Okay. Want something to drink first? Water? Coffee? No, She sat on the couch and I could see it now. The exhaustion wasn't from travel. It was from stress. I made a mistake. Which mistake are we talking about? She flinched at my tone. The pause, asking for space. All of it. Why was it a mistake? Because I thought time apart would help me figure things out. But instead it just made me realize what I have, what I could lose. I sat in the chair across from her, not beside her on the couch. The distance was deliberate. What changed? I asked. 9 days ago, you needed 3 weeks to figure out if you were happy. Now you're back early, saying it was a mistake. She looked down at her hands. I talked to Bethany. She mentioned running into Dominic's girlfriend. Said you seemed different, happy, and that bothered you? It scared me, she corrected. The thought that you were moving on, that you didn't need me. I don't need you, I said quietly. Her head snapped up. What? I don't need you? That's what these 9 days taught me. I can function just fine on my own. Better, actually. So that's it? You've already made up your mind? You asked for a pause. I gave you one. But pauses work both ways. While you were in Tokyo figuring out if you wanted this marriage, I was here figuring out the same thing. And? Her voice was barely a whisper. I've spent the last 9 days reconnecting with friends you pushed away, doing hobbies you dismissed, going to the gym without hearing about how it's taking time away from us. And you know what I realized? She didn't answer. I realized that being alone felt better than being with someone who makes me feel alone anyway. Tears started running down her face. You're saying you want a divorce? I'm saying that this pause showed me what our marriage actually is. You control everything, who I see, what I do, how I spend my time. And the moment you loosen that control for 9 days, you panic and come running back. That's not fair. I was trying to work on myself. By going to Tokyo, I cut her off by asking for space from your marriage while on a business trip. What exactly were you working on? She stood up, pacing now. I know it sounds bad, but I genuinely needed time to think, to figure out what I wanted. And what do you want? I stood too, keeping the coffee table between us. I want us. I want this marriage to work. Why? Because you actually want it? Or because you don't like the idea of me being okay without you? That's not answer the question. If you came home and found me devastated, begging you to stay, would you respect me more or less? She froze. The answer was written all over her face. That's what I thought, I said. You wanted to come back to me broken so you could be the one who fixed things on your terms, under your conditions. I didn't. You did. And when you heard I was doing fine, you cut your trip short. Not because you missed me, because you were losing control. She was crying harder now. I love you. Maybe you do. But love isn't enough when it comes with manipulation. So what now? She wiped her face. You've made up your mind. That's it. I walked to my desk, pulled out the folder Brennan had prepared, set it on the coffee table next to my cutting board. I had a lot of time to think these last 9 days, I said. Met with a lawyer, got our finances sorted, figured out what fair looks like. She stared at the folder like it was a bomb. You filed for divorce? Not yet. But I'm prepared to. I can't believe this. Her voice rose. I asked for 3 weeks to work on myself, and you used it to plan our divorce. You asked for 3 weeks to decide if you wanted this marriage. I used 9 days to realize I don't want a marriage that requires pauses. I want a partner, not someone who keeps me around as an option. She grabbed the folder, flipped it open, started reading. I watched her face go from anger to shock to something closer to acceptance. This is really happening, she said quietly. It doesn't have to, I said. We could try counseling, could try to rebuild, but it has to be genuine. No more manipulation, no more control, no more testing me to see if I'll break. I wasn't testing you. You absolutely were, and I failed your test by passing it. She looked up at me, confusion clear on her face. You wanted me to fall apart without you, I explained, to prove you were essential. When I didn't, when I actually thrived, it terrified you because it meant you couldn't control the narrative anymore. She closed the folder, set it down, sat back on the couch, looking smaller somehow. What if I promised to change? She asked, what if we start over? Start over from what? From manipulation. From years of you making me feel guilty for having friends, for having hobbies, for having a life outside of your approval. I didn't realize I was doing that. Maybe you didn't. Or maybe you did, and convinced yourself it was justified. I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. Either way, these 9 days showed me something important, showed me who I am when I'm not constantly trying to be who you want me to be. And who are you? Someone who deserves better than a marriage that needs to be paused. We sat in silence for a long moment. The cutting board sat between us, solid and simple and honest. A reminder that I'd built something with my own hands while she was gone. I'm staying at Jenna's tonight, she finally said. Give us both time to process. Probably smart. She gathered a few things, threw them in an overnight bag, stood at the door just like she had 9 days earlier. But everything was different now. I really did miss you, she said quietly. I believe you. But missing someone and respecting them are two different things, she left without another word. I sat on the couch, picked up my cutting board, ran my hands over the wood I'd shaped, sanded, finished. She'd asked for a pause, expecting to find me broken when she pressed play again. Instead, she'd found someone who'd learned to stand on his own. And that changed everything. The next morning, she showed up unannounced. I was making coffee, didn't offer her any. We need to talk more, she said. How so? You're making me out to be this controlling monster when all I did was ask for some space to think. Is that all you did? I leaned against the counter. Because from where I'm standing, you spent years making me feel guilty for having a life outside of you, then asked for a pause when it suited you, and came running back the moment you realized I was okay without you. That's not what happened. Then tell me what happened. Why did you cut your trip short? She hesitated. I told you. I realized I made a mistake. Try again. And this time, be honest. Her face flushed. Fine. Bethany told me you were at the gym looking good. That Dominic mentioned you seemed lighter, happier, and it made me think that maybe you were moving on. So you came back to stop that? I came back because I love you. You came back because you didn't like losing control. I set down my coffee. There's a difference. She sat on the couch, and I saw it then. The shift from defensiveness to something else. Desperation, maybe. What do you want from me? She asked. You want me to admit I was wrong? Fine, I was wrong. The pause was a stupid idea. I should have just talked to you about my feelings instead of running away to Tokyo. And why didn't you? Because talking to you has become impossible. You shut down every time I try to have a serious conversation. I almost laughed. I shut down. You realize that's exactly what you do, right? Turn everything around so I'm always the problem. That's not last year I cut her off. I mentioned wanting to take a weekend fishing trip with Dominic. You turned it into a 3-day argument about how I wasn't prioritizing our marriage. Remember that? She looked away. 2 years ago, I continued, I signed up for a photography class. You guilt-tripped me into dropping it because the Thursday night sessions were our time together. Even though we spent those nights with you on your phone while I watched TV, you're keeping score now. I'm showing you a pattern, one you either don't see or refuse to acknowledge. I moved to the chair across from her. You control the narrative. You decide what's acceptable and what isn't, and when I finally stopped playing along, you panicked. So what do you want? Her voice rose. You want me to grovel, to beg for another chance? I want you to understand why I'm done. The word hung in the air between us. Done. Final. No negotiation. You're serious about the divorce? It wasn't a question. I think it's best for both of us. How is destroying our marriage best for both of us? Because we're not happy. You're not happy, or you wouldn't have asked for a pause. I'm not happy, or I would have fought harder to keep you from leaving. She was crying again. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, work on communication. We're past that. I kept my tone even. You asked for space to figure out what you wanted. Well, I figured out what I want. I want a life where I can breathe without permission. That's not fair. I gave you plenty of freedom. Did you? Name one thing I've done in the last 3 years that you've fully supported without making me feel guilty about it. Silence. Exactly, I said. In these past 9 days, I've done more things for myself than I have in 3 years combined. That tells me everything I need to know. She stood up abruptly. Fine. If you want a divorce so badly, let's do it. But don't pretend you're the sufferer here. I'm not the sufferer, neither are you. We're just two people who shouldn't be married anymore. Because I made one mistake. Because you made 1,000 mistakes, and this was just the first one I finally recognized for what it was. I stood too. The pause wasn't the problem, it was the symptom. You wanted an escape hatch while keeping me on standby. That's not a marriage. That's insurance. I hate you right now, she said quietly. I know, but you'll get over it. And eventually, you might even realize I'm right. She grabbed her bag, headed for the door, stopped with her hand on the knob. I'm going to tell everyone you gave up on us, she said. That you threw away 6 years without even trying to fight for it. Go ahead. Tell them whatever you want. People who actually know me will see the truth. And what truth is that? That I spent 6 years fighting for a marriage while you spent 6 years taking it for granted. The pause was just you finally admitting what I'd been feeling for years. She slammed the door on her way out. I stood there for a moment, then pulled out my phone, called Brennan. I'm ready to file, I said when he answered. You're sure? Completely. I'll have the papers ready by Friday. Can you come in to sign them? I'll be there. She started calling, left voicemails ranging from angry to apologetic to bargaining. I listened to each one but didn't respond. The last one came at midnight. I know you probably won't answer, but I need you to know something. I do love you. I always have. And I'm sorry that wasn't enough. I'm sorry I wasn't enough. But destroying what we had isn't going to make you happy. You're going to regret this. I deleted it without replying. Friday morning, I signed the divorce papers in Brennan's office. He explained the next steps. Service of process, waiting periods, division of assets. It was straightforward. We'd kept our finances mostly separate. The house was rented, not owned. No kids, no complicated entanglements. This is one of the cleaner divorces I've handled, Brennan said. Should be finalized within a few months, if she doesn't contest. She'll contest, I said. Not because she wants to fight, but because she'll want to maintain control as long as possible. He nodded. I've seen that before. Just stay firm. Don't engage in the drama. Let the process work. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in years. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined when I got married, but it was the ending I needed. That night, Dominic came over with pizza and beer. How you holding up? He asked. Better than I thought I would. Any regrets? I thought about it. Genuinely thought about it. No, I said finally. The only regret is not doing it sooner. She's been texting Jenna, Dominic said, asking about you. Whether you're seeing anyone, whether you seem upset. What did Jenna tell her? That it's none of her business and she should focus on herself. I smiled. Jenna's good people. She is. And so are you, brother. Don't forget that. We ate pizza and watched a game, and it felt normal. Felt like the before times, when life wasn't a constant negotiation. My phone buzzed around 10, text from her, "Can I come get the rest of my things tomorrow?" What time works for you? I replied. Noon, I'll be here. Saturday at noon, she showed up with Bethany, brought boxes and bags. I stayed in the living room while they packed up her stuff from the bedroom. It took about an hour. When they finished, Bethany carried most of the boxes to the car while she stood in the doorway one last time. This is really happening, she said. It is. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and we'll still be married, still together. We're still married, I pointed out. Just not for much longer. You sound so calm about it. I am calm about it. This is the right decision. She shook her head. I'll never understand how you can just turn off your feelings like that. I'm not turning them off. I'm just choosing not to let them control me anymore. She left without saying goodbye. Bethany gave me a sympathetic look on her way out. I closed the door, looked around the house. It felt emptier now, but not in a bad way. More like space had opened up. Room to breathe, room to become whoever I was supposed to be before I spent 6 years shrinking myself to fit someone else's vision. My phone buzzed. Text from Fletcher at the gym. Bench press session tomorrow morning? I'll be there, I typed back. Another text, this time from the woodworking instructor. Starting advanced class next month. You interested? Definitely. I sat on the couch with my coffee, looked at my cutting board on the table, thought about the man who'd agreed to a marriage pause 9 days ago, expecting to spend 3 weeks miserable and lost. That man was gone. In his place was someone who'd learned that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is let go of what's holding you back. Even if that thing is a marriage you thought you wanted, especially if it's a marriage that stopped serving you years ago. The divorce would be final in a few months, but I was already free. 4 months later, the divorce was final. She'd contested initially, dragged it out for 6 weeks with lawyers and negotiations, wanted spousal support despite making more money than me, wanted half of everything despite our prenup. Eventually, her lawyer probably told her what mine already knew. She had no case. The final hearing took 20 minutes. Judge signed the papers. We walked out of the courthouse from different exits. I never saw her again after that day. Life moved forward in ways I hadn't expected. The woodworking hobby turned into a side business. Started selling cutting boards and small furniture pieces online. Nothing huge, but enough to fund more tools and classes. Fletcher and I became actual friends. Hit the gym 4 times a week. He introduced me to rock climbing. Turned out I was decent at it. Dominic and Jenna set me up on a few dates. Some went well, some didn't. I wasn't in a rush. For the first time in years, I was comfortable being alone. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into her at a coffee shop downtown. Pure coincidence. She was with someone, some guy in a suit. Looked polished, corporate. She saw me, froze. I nodded, kept walking to place my order. Wait, she called out. I turned. Hey, how are you? She asked, leaving the suit guy at their table. Good, you? I'm okay. This is weird, isn't it? A little. Awkward silence. She looked different. Older somehow, or maybe just tired. I heard you're doing woodworking now, she said. Selling stuff online? Yeah, it's going well. That's good. I'm glad you found something you enjoy. Another pause. The guy at her table was watching us. I should get back, she said, but I'm glad you're doing well, genuinely. You too. She walked away and I ordered my coffee, sat by the window watching people pass by. My phone buzzed. Text from Fletcher. Climbing gym tonight? Absolutely, I typed back. I thought about what she'd said. That pressing pause on the marriage was supposed to give us clarity. She'd been right about that part. It just hadn't given us the clarity she'd expected. She thought she'd come back to find me waiting, grateful, ready to accept whatever terms she set, ready to go back to being the person she'd molded me into. Instead, she'd come back to find someone who'd pressed play on a different life entirely. A life without manipulation, without guilt, without constantly seeking approval. A life that was genuinely, honestly mine. I finished my coffee, headed to the climbing gym. Fletcher was already there, geared up and ready. Good day, he asked. Yeah, I said, meaning it. Actually, it is. We climbed until my arm burned and my mind was clear. And somewhere, the woman who'd asked for 3 weeks to figure out what she wanted was probably still trying to understand what went wrong. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd figured out what I wanted during those 3 weeks, and it turned out what I wanted was simple. Freedom, respect, a life lived on my own terms. She'd given me the space to find that, and I never looked back.